second Kiss book that Marvel Comics had produced. I was asked to write it, working as a co-scenarist with Alan Weiss. Did come up with the original idea was having the Kiss characters go back and chase this character, Dark Lord, who was going to be trying to draw power from different public events throughout history. And this gave us the opportunity to show Kiss in different time periods. I wound up working with a young man named John Romita Jr. After I had written the plot for the story, I remember we went up to Bill Aucoin's office, who was the Kiss manager, and he said, well, Gene loved your story and Paul hated it. So I was able to go back and do some restructuring and get it to please everybody, and then off we went. I love the idea of Gene being a demon falling into this Peter Max kind of a setup. I was able to put the elf in here. For those of you who are followers of, remember Steve Gerber's work on the Defenders, I had created a character here called Saurian Holmes. It would be interesting to have Kiss meet Sherlock Holmes, but I didn't want it to be Sherlock Holmes. I thought that this character was sort of a throwback. He was an actual dinosaur, trying to maintain the status quo at the time of great social turmoil. But I was able to see that each of these characters, all four of the Kiss characters, were able to use their powers. They basically were, they were superheroes. Gene Simmons was a huge Marvel fan. And each four of the Kiss characters had their own personalities and their own individual powers. John Romita Jr. was just coming into his own, and we had a blast on this one. These are 2 pages from a Tomb of Dracula story that I had co-written with Lynn Graham, who was editing the line at the time. Back then, we would do the lettering often on overlays rather than on the artwork itself. I always had found Lilith a fascinating character because she was an artificially conceived vampire. She was meant to plague him eternally. The gypsy that had created and made her said that you were going to be your father's eternal plague. And I wanted to show she actually could not kill him. When he confronts Lilith, go ahead, take the stake and the hammer and plunge it through my chest. And she can't do it. She is to follow him throughout eternity, but she cannot kill him. Again, Gene handled it so brilliantly. Back then, if you had written a story, the writer received a few of the pages, whereas the artist, quite rightfully, received the lion's share of it. And so I received these 2 pages from Gene Coleman. This goes back to 1978. This was penciled by John Byrne. Some of you may have heard of him. Chris Claremont did the plot on this, but Chris was unable to script it, and I was tapped to do the actual scripting. This was a story that has Spider-Man and Luke Cage trying to rescue people from a burning building. And I remember I even had a friend of my father's who was a fireman in New York. I used him as a character, and I dedicated the issue to the New York City Fire Department. This, of course, brings back those halcyon days of the disco. I remember at one point there was a little controversy because I had Peter sidling up to the bar and ordering a beer, and we had a big discussion in the office about whether or not Peter Parker actually would drink. I think in this instance, Peter wanting to fit in, he's got the whole disco outfit, maybe wants to be cool. This was one of the very first things that I had written, and I was grateful to have the superb storytelling of John Byrne underlying this. I was very appreciative of the fact that I was asked to actually do the scripting on this, and it was something that I was kind of cutting my teeth on as a Marvel scripter, and especially writing Peter Parker and Spider-Man was something that was pretty intimidating. I remember always loving Doctor Strange, particularly the Lee Ditko Doctor Strange. His brownstone was down in Greenwich Village, so I got together with a bunch of my buddies. We said, let's go into New York City and let's see if we can find this building. We were only about 12, 13 years old. Going down to Greenwich Village, going down Bleecker Street, and looking for that house. Realizing as you walk these streets that characters such as Stephen Strange could live here, and that if he was going to exist anywhere, he would live in Greenwich Village. if Dr. Strange wanted to keep his house hidden, he would cast a spell on it so you wouldn't be able to see it. It wouldn't look anything like it was in the comics. And that's how I rationalized it with my friends. When we got back to New Jersey and we were a little disappointed we couldn't find his brownstone, we said, you know, maybe we passed Stephen Strange in the street, we didn't realize it. What's interesting is that later on, I actually used that as a way of explaining why Stephen Strange's house couldn't always be found. When I had started back in the mid-1970s, there was a feeling up there that we were not going to be in business that much longer. We might as well use up the inventory, just go for the ride and see how long things lasted. Then the direct market hit, things changed to today where we are putting out films that are some of the highest grossing films that Hollywood has ever produced. And I wouldn't have changed a minute of the time that I spent on staff on the film.
Mystery song in the jukebox of your mind, noise from other rooms, on a